I wasn't supposed to be in Colorado, not really. Not on that road, and definitely not that late in the season. But grief and failure have a funny way of redirecting your life like a busted GPS. My name's Trevor Lang, 32, freelance IT consultant. Or I was, before I lost 3 clients in 4 months, burned through savings, and finalized a bitter divorce in Denver family court with a judge who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I started driving on a Monday. No destination, no playlist. Just the hum of the road and a cold front moving in from the northwest. I passed familiar exits, ignored them, ate a gas station burrito in Craig around 2 p.m., then kept driving. Somewhere past Steamboat Springs, I turned off my phone and tossed it in the glove box. I told myself it was freedom. In truth, it was avoidance. By the time the snow started falling lightly around 9 p.m., I hadn't seen another car in 30 minutes. I was in that middle of nowhere stretch between Yampa Valley and Toponas, just highway, pine trees, and whatever my headlights could catch. I was about to turn around when I noticed the same car that had been trailing me earlier, a blue Chevy Suburban, old model, faded plates, not tailgating, just there, same distance, steady. That's when I saw it, a dim neon sign through the trees, Pine Creek Motel. Looked like something pulled out of a time capsule. 2 floors, a flickering vacancy sign, and a reception booth with 1 yellowed fluorescent bulb behind dirty glass. I almost drove past it. Then I remembered my phone was dead, my gas low, and my mind running on fumes. I pulled in. The parking lot had 4 spots. 2 were snowed over. 1 was empty. 1 had the blue SUV. Parked. Engine off. Windows fogged. I got out, crunching through the snow, and knocked on the glass at reception. An old man with sunken cheeks and foggy eyes slid the window open without saying a word. "Got a room?" He nodded. "Refunds. Cash only. 48. Room 207, last one upstairs, far end. Heater's loud." "No." I handed over my last 2 20s and a crumpled 10. He handed me a metal key with a cracked plastic tag. No ID, no name, no receipt. Just a grunt and a look that said, "Don't ask." Inside, the room smelled like wet carpet and something faintly metallic. The bed sagged. The TV didn't work. The bathroom had no lock. I tossed my bag on the floor, kept my shoes on, and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the silence press against my chest. Then came the tapping. Slow, measured. 4 knocks on the wall behind the bed. Tap, tap, pause, tap. I froze, head cocked. It wasn't the heater. Too clean, too human. I stood up, opened the door, and looked out into the hallway. Empty. Dead quiet. I was about to chalk it up to my nerves when I noticed the door's latch bolt wasn't set, and I knew I'd locked it. After the divorce, I got funny about locks. I checked them twice, sometimes 3 times. Ritual, habit, safety. That latch had been flipped. Now it wasn't. My throat tightened. I closed the door and set the latch again, wedged the room's only chair under the knob, and sat back on the bed, every sense screaming. That's when the note slid under the door. No sound, just paper. I picked it up. "You should have kept driving." I sat there for what felt like a full minute, note in one hand, heart climbing into my throat. I stared at the door. Nothing moved under it. No shadows, no footsteps. Just the quiet hum of that busted heater and the faintest creak of settling wood. My phone was dead. The room phone, static, no dial tone. I jiggled the cord and got nothing. I looked out the peephole, still empty. But then I remembered the SUV. Where was it parked? I pulled the curtain back an inch. The lot was dark, light above the sign, flickering like it couldn't make up its mind. The SUV was no longer in the spot where I saw it. It was now behind the dumpster at the back of the building. Someone was inside, a shape in the front seat, still and watching. Then the power flickered. Just once. The lamp dimmed. Came back. The hallway outside went dark entirely. And then, the doorknob rattled. Once. Twice. Then a beep. Like a card reader. Another beep. I backed up toward the bathroom. No weapon in the room, not even a hanger strong enough to do damage. My laptop bag lay on the floor by the nightstand, useless in a fight. The knob jiggled again, harder this time. Then silence. I didn't wait to see what came next. I grabbed my bag, crawled across the floor to the window and worked the latch open. It was sticky, but I got it. I climbed out, scraped my leg on the sill, and dropped into the snow below, landing hard. My knees screamed, but I kept moving. I didn't run for the lot. I ran behind the building, into the trees behind the motel. Branches whipped at my face. The wind picked up. Snow in my eyes. My breath puffed out in clouds. Then I found it, a maintenance shed. Small, wooden, almost invisible. I pulled the door open, ducked inside, and collapsed against the wall. I sat in the dark, listening. Footsteps crunched nearby. Slow, measured, then a pause, then the sound of keys or metal jingling. I held my breath. The footsteps passed. I didn't move. Minutes passed, maybe more. Eventually, headlights flared in the trees. Then the low rumble of an engine. The SUV peeled out of the lot, tires slipping once on the ice before disappearing up the road. I waited longer, until the cold soaked into my bones. Then I made my way back around the building to the front office. Empty. No lights. The front door was ajar. The desk inside was abandoned. The old man? Gone. Not even a coat on the hook behind the chair. No phone. No ledger. Nothing but a black and white TV still flickering in the corner with static. I walked back into the snow and kept going until I hit the road. And that's when I saw it. A snowplow, headlights carving through the whiteout. I jumped into the road, waving my arms. The driver slammed the brakes, rolled down the window. "You all right, man?" "No," I said. "I need help." The driver's name was Eli, mid-50s, heavy-set, kind face. He helped me into the cab, cranked the heat, and listened as I told him everything in fragments. SUV, room, the note, the door rattling. He kept glancing at me like he wasn't sure if I was crazy or just shaken up. Either way, he called the sheriff. "We'll meet him at the highway junction," he said, then looked over. "Empty? You said the desk was like no one had been there in hours." He frowned. "That place has been closed for almost 2 years." I turned. "What?" He nodded. "Pine Creek shut down after a fire in the main office. Place got a citation for health violations. Was supposed to be condemned last spring. That old man, the room key. I've seen squatters turn those places into all kinds of setups. Drugs, sometimes worse." We met the police 10 minutes later, 2 deputies in a snow-ready cruiser. I repeated everything again, trying to sound calm, rational. They took me back to the property. No lights. The office door swinging in the wind. Deputy Haynes went in with a flashlight. "There's nothing here." The room I'd stayed in, 207, was unlocked. My laptop bag was still there, chair still wedged under the knob, but no note, no paper. "Could have been some transient messing around," the other officer said. "But you did the right thing. People disappear out here all the time." "And that SUV? We've had alerts out on a vehicle like that, seen in Utah, Wyoming, linked to 3 missing persons reports. All travelers. They bagged the room key, said they'd follow up. I never heard back. They let me sleep at the station that night. Not that I really slept. Just closed my eyes on a vinyl couch under fluorescent lights and tried not to replay the sound of the keycard reader beeping outside my door. It looped in my head like a ticking clock. By morning, the storm had passed. Deputy Haynes gave me a ride back to my car at the motel. It was untouched, snow covering everything except the windshield, which had been recently cleared, like someone had stood there for a while, watching. I thanked the deputy, drove back to my sister's place in Denver without stopping, and didn't tell her what happened. I didn't even unpack, just showered, sat on the edge of the guest bed, and stared at the wall until the room started spinning. A few days later, I replaced my phone, got a call from a detective with the Routt County Sheriff's Office. They confirmed the Pine Creek Motel had been closed since the previous spring. No employees on record, no permit for operation. The power was supposed to be disconnected, but clearly someone had rerouted it. Even stranger, the SUV matched a Bolo. Be on the lookout. Issued across 3 states. It had been captured on traffic cams in Durango, then Moab, Utah, and then somewhere near Laramie. Always on back roads, always following. And then, one last detail. In the snow beneath the motel's second-floor window, my window, the cops found a skeleton key card. A master override, not from any known hotel brand. Likely bought online, black plastic, no markings. I asked the detective what he thought it meant. His voice dropped. "We don't think you were the first person targeted there." And the old man? No prints, no name. No one matching your description ever worked there. You sure he was real? I wanted to laugh, but I wasn't sure of anything anymore. In the weeks that followed, I changed. I used to be easygoing, maybe too passive. People called me reliable, calm, maybe even boring. Now, I double lock everything. I wedge furniture under doors at night. I sleep with a flashlight in one hand and a noise machine running just loud enough to drown out the silence. I quit freelancing. Couldn't sit alone at home all day without jumping at every noise. I took a salaried job in Boulder. More coworkers, more movement, less time to think. But the damage was done. I see things now. A parked car that sits too long outside my house. A man standing too still on a street corner. Sometimes I follow people in the grocery store for a few aisles just to make sure they're not following me. It's exhausting. But it's not paranoia. It's instinct. Because I've seen how little it takes for your life to tilt sideways. How quickly your name becomes a footnote in someone else's plan. The blue SUV? Never found. The old man? Never identified. The camera system at the motel turned out to be fake. Decoys with no wiring. There's a line people like to say when something bad happens. It could have been worse. They don't know what they're talking about, because sometimes the worst thing isn't death. It's surviving without understanding why you were chosen. It's having to pretend that a motel, a hallway, and a locked door didn't almost become your final resting place. I didn't tell many people this story. Not because I'm ashamed, but because no one really knows what to say when you do. You can't joke it off. You can't wrap it up with a silver lining, but I can offer this. I can. If something feels off, don't wait to find out how wrong it can go. Don't assume your instincts are just anxiety. Don't give your trust to strange places just because they offer shelter from the storm. Danger doesn't always announce itself with a knife or a gun. Sometimes it starts with a tapping on the wall, a beep at the door, and a voice in your head that says, "You should have kept driving." I moved to Greystone, Wyoming without much fanfare. Just me, my car, and a suitcase full of burnt hope. I was 27, fresh from Seattle, recovering from a toxic job where my boss praised me by day and tore me down by night. I needed simplicity. I needed quiet. That's when I saw the job posting. Front desk receptionist at Maplerrest Inn. Small town motel, no frills, no crowds, just a steady paycheck and a single-room apartment above the office. It felt like a lifeline. My first night was peaceful. Light rain pattered on the windows. The lobby's yellow bulbs cast a familiar glow on faux wood walls. I made a pot of coffee, flipped through local news, and felt something settle. I wasn't running anymore. Weeks passed. The job was smaller than I'd hoped. Check-ins, check-outs, light cleaning, but easy. I liked the rhythm. Key cards, receipts, polite exchanges. I slept well. I walked in quiet halls. I drank coffee on the front porch, listening to rain against the roof. Then came the little cracks. Room 12's occupant complained of knocking on her window at 3 a.m. She said it stopped when someone flicked the walkway light. The next week, a couple checking out spoke of a man in a trench coat standing in the stairwell, unmoving, watching them. Couldn't even see him's face, the husband told me. I smiled and offered a refund on the coffee. Must be small-town nerves, I said. I wanted to believe them. But then I saw him. He walked in on a Friday evening, tall, lean, early 40s, gray suit like he was heading to a board meeting. His pale gray eyes had a polite smile that didn't quite reach them. He asked about vacancies, but really he was studying me. "How long you been working here?" he asked casually. "A few weeks," I said. He nodded, friendly. "You live on site?" "Yeah. My room's upstairs." "Ever think of doing something bigger than this?" I laughed nervously. "Not really." He smiled, left. "You should." He slipped a $20 bill in the guest book. "Thank you." Then I shrugged it off. Strange but harmless. Rain hammered the windows afterward, and I walked home to my own room upstairs, stuck around the TV, and fell asleep to late-night reruns. I hadn't expected to see him again, but I did 3 nights later, this time with a woman. She was younger, late 20s, well-dressed even in rain. Red dress, leather jacket, oversized sunglasses at night. She glowed fragrance, expensive perfume, polished hair, sculpted lips, pretty, intense. He introduced her. She smiled warmly, complimented my voice. "You have this quiet presence. It's magnetic." She offered me a card. I cringed when I took it. "We're organizing retreats for gifted women," she said. "Exclusive. You have a rare aura. Would like to invite you." I took the card reluctantly, said thank you, and excused myself. My stomach knotted. The card looked legit. Gold imprint on black cardstock, a website address. I looked up later. Nothing. Domain parked. No contact info. Just nothing. My heartbeat spiked. I threw it out. But he and the woman, their eyes lingered. Less than a week later, I walked to the lobby at closing time. Rain had picked up. Harder. I pushed out the final log for the night and flicked the sign to closed. That's when I noticed the black SUV under the broken streetlight in the parking lot. Engine idling, headlights off, no license plate. I swallowed. Inside, I told myself it was the motel manager or my boss's truck. But no, this wasn't standard. That truck was several blocks away, at his house, and it wasn't idling under a flickering lamp at midnight. The next night, it was there again. Same spot. Rain dark, hooded windows. I started checking the camera feed. Every 2 hours. The SUV never moved, and the phone line cut out again. The 3rd time this month. Dead. I checked the breaker. Fine. I called my boss at home. He sounded tired, distant. "Probably storms," he said. I didn't feel reassured. That Tuesday evening, I locked up guests by 8:30. I swept the lobby, cleaned a coffee spill, and pulled the sign to closed at exactly 8:50 p.m. That's when I felt it. Someone just outside the door. I froze. Heard the rain's hush against the glass. My eyes searched the lobby camera, just lobby, door ajar slightly. No storm, someone pulled it open. And there she was again. The woman. No man this time. She'd walked in through the unlocked front door. She didn't carry an umbrella. Her hair was sleek, damp at the ends. She wore sunglasses visible under the dim ceiling light. She was smiling, just smiling, waiting. I thought about asking her to leave. Instead, I walked her to the door. I asked quietly, "Can I help you?" She shook her head. "Just checking in on you." She paused, leaning against the doorframe. Then she said low, "You shouldn't be alone tonight." I slammed the door. I hit lock. I grabbed the desk phone. Dead. I tapped the keypad phone. Through the feed's grainy night vision, I saw the SUV creeping around beside my window. Engine off. Streetlight flickering on its roof. I grabbed the keyring. I ran. Down the rear hall. Slid into the laundry room. I locked the door. Turned on the washer light. The staff Wi-Fi was strongest here, for the laundry app. I pulled out my phone. 2 bars. I typed, trembling, "Help. SUV at motel. Please." I messaged my boss, who said he was 15 minutes away. 3 minutes later, headlights carved the lot. SUV screeched and shot off. Within 10 minutes, a sheriff's cruiser pulled in. Deputies jumped out, inspected room 14's file. Front desk file, name fake. Online ID copied. The card? Traced to old scam site used to attract claimants to disappearances. Scary stuff. Women who took the bait never showed up. They watched the security footage. They saw a man in gloves, a duffel bag, try entering my room via back exit door, then flee when car lights flashed. I sat in the wet grass under flashing red and blue. Rain dripped off my hair. I realized how close I got, and how lucky I was to run. They escorted me home, sat me down in my own kitchen. I wrote everything down. 1 week later, I quit. I moved to Salt Lake City. I take long drives on rainy nights just to remind myself that paranoia isn't crazy. It can save your life. But I'm different now. I tuck keys inside my clothes. I lock back doors twice. I don't smile at strangers too warmly. I trust instincts. When something feels off, even in a quiet place, you have every right to act on it. Trust your instincts. Boundaries aren't rude, they're necessary. Your safety isn't optional. My name's Lucas Marin. I'm 29, born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and until recently I had what I thought was a decent life. Steady job at a mid-sized tech startup, a live-in girlfriend named Ava, plans for a dog, maybe a house. Then within 2 months, it all fell apart. My company folded unexpectedly, laid off half the staff with a generic mass email. Ava stuck around for a little while, but it became obvious she wasn't in it for the long haul. She told me I'd changed. Maybe I had. And a week later, she was gone too. So I did what people do when they feel like they've lost everything. I loaded up my Honda Civic with the essentials: clothes, computer tower, some old framed photos, a pair of sneakers I couldn't part with, and a shoebox of what Ava didn't want to take back. My destination was Austin, Texas. A buddy of mine had a couch to spare and a possible job connection in his marketing firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a reset. By the time I hit Sierra Blanca, I'd been driving almost 13 hours straight. The desert had started to feel endless, wind-blown, dry, and anonymous. My body ached. My phone was on 3%, and the sky had darkened into a stretch of cloudless navy. I didn't even know where I was exactly. I hadn't planned to stop, but when I saw the rusted sign flickering Desert Lantern Lodge in faded red neon, I turned in without thinking. The parking lot was cracked, mostly empty except for a pickup with a missing tailgate and a dusty minivan. The office lights were yellowed and buzzed with old fluorescents. Inside, a kid, maybe 17, eyes glued to his phone, handed me a key card without much more than a grunt. Room 6. Far end. No ID check. No receipt. Just that plastic key and a barely there nod toward the door. I didn't care. I just wanted to sleep. Room 6 smelled like bleach and mildew. The floor creaked with every step, and the bathroom mirror was cracked in the top corner. One curtain refused to close all the way, and the bed looked like it hadn't been rotated since the 90s. But I was too exhausted to think about it. I dropped my duffel by the edge of the mattress, peeled off my hoodie, and lay back fully clothed. The hum of the old AC unit did a decent job of drowning out my thoughts. I was almost asleep when I heard the door handle rattle. Soft at first, then again, and again. At first I thought maybe it was wind or maybe the door hadn't latched fully. I stood, pressed it shut, turned the deadbolt, and climbed back onto the bed. But then came a knock. Slow. 3 times. Then a voice. "Hey man, they gave me the wrong room. This is supposed to be mine." The voice outside was calm. Too calm. "Front desk messed up." The guy continued. "Can you open up so I can show you the receipt?" I sat upright on the bed, pulse spiking. There was no way this was a mix-up. He had a key card apparently, but was knocking. Something about it felt wrong. I stood and cleared my throat. No offense, man, but I think you've got the wrong room," I said, trying to sound confident. "Maybe check with the desk again?" Silence. No footsteps, no reply. Then the sharp beep of a keycard being swiped. Click. The lock disengaged. Only the deadbolt kept him out. I rushed forward, heart hammering, and shoved the dresser, a rickety piece of furniture, against the door. The guy on the other side didn't like that. The door thudded once, twice, harder the third time. "Come on, man," he said, voice now colder, lower, than it needs to be. "You're making this way more complicated." I backed away from the door, eyes darting around the room. My phone was dead, battery long gone. Charger? In the car. No landline. No one to call. I looked at the window, then the bottle of water on the side table. I grabbed it, not because I thought it'd help, but because I needed something, anything. Then I saw it. Movement outside the curtain. A second shadow passed by. Another person, whispering. I froze. My chest hurt from how fast I was breathing. The two voices murmured something I couldn't catch. Then suddenly, they were gone. Just gone. I didn't move from that room the rest of the night. Didn't sleep. Didn't blink for what felt like an hour. I pulled a coat hanger from the closet and kept it by my side like some makeshift weapon. At some point around 4 a.m., I pushed the dresser aside, opened the door slowly, and peered out. Nothing. Not even the sound of a car engine. By sunrise, I was pale and shaking. When I stepped outside to get my charger from the car, I saw 2 fresh scratches on the driver's side door. Thin. Deliberate. That's when I realized they'd checked the car first. The kid at the front desk didn't even look up from his phone when I walked in the next morning. I hadn't showered. My eyes were bloodshot. I looked like hell, and I knew it. "There were 2 guys trying to break into my room last night," I said, voice tight. "They had a key card." He finally glanced up, raised an eyebrow. "We don't have any other check-ins logged," he said. "Here. Sorry, man. Just you, and that's manual. No cameras." "That's it?" I said. "You don't track who gets keys?" "We only got 10 rooms. Most people pay cash. It's not that kind of place." No apologies. No concern. I filed a police report later that day at a tiny sheriff's office near the highway. The officer on duty, an older guy with a sun-creased face, nodded along as I described the incident. "Could be a crime of opportunity," he said. "You said you had stuff in your car?" "Yeah," I said. "Boxes. My name tag from work was on one. Sounds like they saw it. Picked your room. Could have cloned the card or bribed the front desk kid to give him one. Happens more than you'd think. No signs of forced entry, though?" "Not with a working card," he said. "Trespassing. Thin ice, legally speaking. And if they didn't get in, that's technically just attempted. I left the station feeling less safe, not more. I didn't eat that day. Just drove straight to Austin with every box tied down, every stop carefully chosen, and every motel I passed ignored. I moved in with my buddy Mark for a few weeks. Got a job at a content agency downtown, not glamorous but steady. Found a decent apartment with a second-floor entrance and a well-lit parking lot, but the fear didn't leave. The first time I stayed at a motel again, 6 months later for a work trip, I triple-locked the door and jammed a chair under the handle. I took pictures of the exit routes. Left my phone charging right next to me. I didn't sleep much that night either. I know how people are. They hear this kind of story and think, that won't happen to me. I wouldn't open the door. I'd be smarter. But that's the thing. It's not about being smart. It's about luck, timing, and how far someone else is willing to go. The guys outside my door in Sierra Blanca, they were ready. They'd seen my name, picked my room, had a key. They didn't just stumble across my car by chance. They had tools, and they knew how to use them. The only reason I'm here telling this story is because that bolt held. That bolt saved my life. I never got closure. The police never found the men. The motel's kid clerk swore he didn't remember giving out a second card. I stopped pushing, moved on or tried to, but I changed. I never book ground floor motel rooms anymore. I always charge my phone in the car and the charger comes inside. I carry a door wedge when I travel, even to hotels that seem upscale. Trust is expensive now. There's a difference between fear and awareness. Fear paralyzes. Awareness prepares. I think about that night often, not with anger, but with a quiet understanding of how vulnerable we are when we assume the world works the way it's supposed to. When we assume someone knocking on the door just wants to talk. When we assume the keycard they have means they belong. They don't always belong. And not every mix-up is a mistake. Always trust your instincts. Sometimes your body senses danger before your mind can make sense of it. In moments of uncertainty, hesitation can be the difference between safety and regret. In the wrong hands, access is power, and survival depends on how prepared you are when no one else is watching. People think pharmaceutical sales is glamorous. Flights, hotel points, power suits. But the truth is it's mostly spreadsheets, cheap motels, and long days trying to convince overworked doctors to try a new cholesterol drug. I've been doing it for nearly 12 years. I'm good at it. I know how to read a room, how to charm without pushing, how to get through the gatekeepers and leave a brochure behind like it was their idea. I used to enjoy the road, the freedom. But something changes after you become a mom. I used to travel light, just a roller bag and a smile. Now I carry guilt with me, heavy as anything else. My name's Marla DeWitt. I'm 38, based out of Buffalo, and the mom of a sweet, curious 6-year-old named Jonah. My husband Evan holds down the fort while I crisscross state lines. He's patient in a way I'm still learning to be. Never complains, never guilt trips me. Even when I miss the little things, a music recital, parent-teacher night, Saturday pancakes. The trip to Langston was routine. Early fall, one of those weeks when the trees are still green, but the air carries that first hint of cold. My territory covered Ontario for the week. Smaller cities, rural clinics, a few regional hospitals. The kind of places where everyone knows each other's first name and nothing moves fast. I flew out Monday morning, connecting through Toronto. On the flight from Pearson to Langston, I sat next to a well-dressed man in his 40s. Introduced himself as Grant. He said he worked in medical devices. Orthopedics, I think. Tall, salt and pepper hair, clean nails, soft voice. Just enough polish to seem professional, not enough to feel rehearsed. We talked shop, nothing flirty. He had a business card, and I gave him mine, the work one. I'm cautious. I always am. We even joked about how rare it is to meet someone halfway normal on a flight these days. When we landed, we wished each other luck and parted ways. That night, I checked into the Hollow Pines Inn, a modest roadside motel with fake pine paneling and carpet that hadn't been cleaned since Y2K. My company books cheap to keep costs down, and I wasn't new to this. I'd stayed in worse. I FaceTimed Evan and Jonah from the bed while unpacking samples. Jonah held up a drawing of a lion he made in school. Evan smiled, holding his phone steady even though I could tell he was making dinner with the other hand. We talked about the week ahead, what groceries needed restocking, whether Jonah could stay up to watch cartoons. It was domestic, warm. When I hung up, I felt a strange kind of peace. It didn't last. It was 10:20 p.m. I was already in pajamas, brushing my teeth when the motel phone rang. I assumed it was a wrong number. Hello? A young woman's voice, polite but hesitant. Hi, ma'am, sorry to bother you. We just wanted to confirm, your husband is here at the desk. He says he's surprising you and asked for a key copy. I stopped mid-motion, toothbrush still in my mouth. My heart did a strange, heavy dip. I'm sorry, my husband is in Buffalo. Who exactly is down there? There was a pause, then some whispering in the background. Tall gentleman. Said his name is Mr. DeWitt. He gave your room number. Said he wanted to surprise you. He mentioned the name Evan. Every hair on my body stood up. I don't know who that is, I said. Do not give him a key. Do you hear me? Yes, ma'am. Understood. I slammed the receiver down and called Evan. He picked up on the second ring, standing in our kitchen back home. I could see the microwave clock in the background. He was still in a t-shirt, holding Jonah's drawing in his free hand. "Hey babe, everything okay? Someone is pretending to be you." "What?" "He's at the front desk. Said he's my husband. He knew your name." "What the hell? Are you okay? Do you want me to call the police?" "I'm going downstairs. Marla." "Wait, don't go alone." But I was already dressing, grabbing my jacket and slipping on flats. My stomach twisted. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I walked fast, phone clenched like a weapon. When I reached the lobby, he was already there. Grant, from the plane, standing by the front desk with his hands in his coat pockets, cool as ever. When he saw me, he smiled like we were old friends meeting for a drink. "Hey," he said. "I hope this isn't too weird." I stopped cold. The girl at the desk glanced nervously between us. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was tight, clipped. I thought we hit it off. I figured maybe it would be nice to have a drink, talk more. I didn't mean to scare you." "How did you know my last name?" He shrugged. "You said it on the plane." "No, I didn't." He smiled like I was being cute. "You talk in your sleep?" he offered, joking. "Lucky guess?" I backed away a step. He didn't come closer, but he didn't look concerned either. "Security's on the way," the desk clerk said quietly. Grant didn't flinch. He looked at me for a moment longer, then said, "Didn't do anything wrong." "It was just a friendly visit." He turned and walked out, not rushed, no confrontation, just faded into the dark parking lot like it was part of his exit plan. The girl behind the desk stared after him. "You want to call the cops?" I nodded, but my voice was stuck. The officer who came out that night was polite, but there wasn't much he could do. No crime had been committed, technically. Grant hadn't forced entry. He hadn't assaulted me. He hadn't even shouted. He was just unsettling. They reviewed the security footage. It showed him walking in. No room key, no reservation. He hadn't booked a room. He'd just shown up. I went back to my room shaken. I locked the door, bolted it, jammed the armchair under the knob, checked the closet twice. The business card he gave me on the plane was still on the dresser. I picked it up and looked closer. No company logo, no job title, just his name, Grant Hensley, and a number. I dialed it. Disconnected. I slept with the lights on that night. At 5:45 a.m., I woke up to the sound of paper sliding across the carpet, a folded note, pushed under the door. I didn't want to touch it, but I forced myself to pick it up. Written in perfect cursive, the kind no one uses anymore. "You're even more beautiful when you're scared." I left the Hollow Pines Inn before sunrise. Packed in 15 minutes, didn't even shower. Drove an hour to the nearest city and paid out of pocket for a high-rise hotel with 24-hour security and keycard elevators. I called my manager and told her the route had to change. I wasn't going back to Langston. I wasn't going to any more small-town motels for a while. For the next few months, I kept the curtains closed in every hotel room, slept with my suitcase against the door, changed up my routes, switched to digital cards only, never gave out my information again, not even my last name unless it was absolutely necessary. My husband was supportive, but it changed him too. He started meeting me halfway on some trips, made excuses to call every night, even if we didn't have much to say. We both needed to feel like someone was watching the other's back. I never saw Grant again. No one did. The police had no record of him. No ID, no room, no fingerprints. It was like he never existed, except in my memory and that folded note I burned in the hotel sink. People underestimate how much danger can hide behind a smile. We think that if someone's calm and polite, they can't be dangerous. But that's exactly how they slip through, by acting like they belong. I still travel for work, still check in with the same suitcase, the same pitch, the same smile. But now I carry something else too, a knowledge I can't unlearn. Because it wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a warning. Trust your instincts, even when they feel inconvenient. Danger doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers with a smile, speaks softly in hotel lobbies, and hands you a card with no job title. Be polite, but be aware, because not every knock at the door comes from someone who belongs on the other side. You don't plan to end up working the front desk at a highway motel in the middle of Nevada. No one dreams of that. It's something you fall into, like a slow collapse. I was 25, a college dropout, half grieving and half numb, working overnights at the Sunvail Motorin off Red River Boulevard, just outside Crescent Pass. The sign buzzed at odd hours. The desert wind whispered like it had secrets. And me, I just wanted the nights to pass quietly. After my dad died last spring, everything started slipping. I'd been in my third year at UNLV, double majoring in psychology, and something I don't even remember now. My mom moved out to live with her sister in Boise. I didn't blame her. Our old house was too quiet, too full of ghosts and bills. And I couldn't pay rent and tuition at the same time. So, I came here. I needed to be somewhere still. And still is exactly what Crescent Pass is. A place time forgets. The Sunvail Motorin sits at the edge of a two-lane road where headlights disappear fast and silence lasts for hours. It's got 16 rooms, a vending machine that eats quarters, and a lobby that smells faintly of lemon cleaner no matter how much I scrub the counter. My shift runs from 10:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. On paper, it sounds boring, but in reality, boring can turn on you quick. Most nights, I saw the same things. A couple of truckers pulling in for 4 hours of sleep, tourists who got lost and needed directions back to I-80, the occasional teenager trying to buy a room with a fake ID and a debit card that wouldn't swipe. Sometimes I wouldn't speak to anyone for 6 straight hours, and the TV would be stuck on static because the remote was missing batteries. I'd sit behind the desk, legs up, watching the cameras on a little black and white monitor, sipping stale coffee I'd brewed 3 hours earlier. But that Thursday night, it didn't feel like a usual shift. It was subtle, the kind of thing you can't explain, just a pressure in the air, like the desert itself was holding its breath. At around 2:15 a.m., I stepped out to dump the lobby trash. The dumpster sat behind the building, just past the vending machine alcove near room 3. I'd done that walk 100 times. Nothing ever happened back there. But this time, I saw someone standing behind the soda machine. Just standing. He wore a red hoodie, the hood pulled up tight. I could only see part of his face, pale, stubbled chin, eyes down. He didn't smoke, didn't move, just stared at the parking lot like he was watching for someone. Or something. "Hey!" I called, trying not to sound tense. "You good out here?" No answer. He didn't flinch, just slowly turned and walked behind the building. No eye contact, no reaction. I stood there a second longer, holding the trash bag like a shield, and tossed it in with a little more force than necessary. My heart thudded as I walked back to the lobby, locking the door behind me. 2 minutes later, the lobby door opened. It was him. Same red hoodie, damp around the neck like he'd been sweating. He walked in like he belonged there, glancing around, hands in his pockets. "Car broke down," he muttered. "Maybe. My buddy's on his way. Just up the road. Need a flashlight or something. Or tape." I stood behind the counter, trying to keep my face neutral. "I can call roadside assistance if you want." "Nah," he said quickly. "Ain't necessary. Just need to peek under the hood. Left my phone in the truck. You mind if I borrow yours? Real quick?" I shook my head. "No phone back here, sorry." Lie. I could feel it buzzing in my back pocket. "But I can call someone for you." He paused. His eyes narrowed slightly like he was trying to decide how far to push this. Then, on the monitor to my left, I saw movement. Camera 2, angled toward the guest parking area, caught something. A second figure, crouched low near the passenger side of an old brown sedan. The shadows made it hard to see, but he was moving slow, deliberate, like he was waiting for a signal. I swallowed hard. "Who else is with you?" I asked, trying to sound casual. The guy blinked. "No one," he said, just like that, flat, like I was stupid for even asking. I turned, pretending to check something in the back room. My hand hovered near the silent panic button under the counter, a little metal nub installed after an attempted robbery 2 years ago. I pressed it. It didn't make a sound, didn't flash, but I hoped it worked. "I'll go grab a flashlight," I said. "Hang tight." He smiled, tight, humorless, and nodded. "Sure." I walked into the hallway and locked the door behind me. Then I stood there, barely breathing, watching the screen. The man in the hoodie exited calmly. Outside, he met the crouched figure near the car. They talked for half a second, then both sprinted into the darkness, beyond the edge of the parking lot and into the brush. Gone. I didn't move until the deputies arrived, 12 minutes later, and I didn't realize until after they left, until after I started rewinding the footage, that the second man, the one crouched by the car, he hadn't stayed there. He'd crept all the way around the building, to the back employee entrance, the one I sometimes forgot to lock. That night, I had locked it. Thank God. He was 2 steps away from getting inside, and I had never even heard him. The next morning, I left my shift with adrenaline still crawling under my skin. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just sat in my rusted-out Corolla outside the sheriff's office, half waiting for something more to happen. But it didn't. When I gave my statement, Deputy Morales was polite, patient, but detached, like he'd heard stories like mine a dozen times before. Maybe he had. This wasn't Vegas. We didn't have high-rise hotels or downtown nightlife. Crescent Pass was an in-between place, the kind of town where trouble didn't always announce itself. It wandered in and out under the cover of quiet. "They didn't get inside," Morales said, reading from his notes. "That's the good part." "Yeah, sure. Good part. But they tried, and they got close. Too close. The footage showed it all. The man in the red hoodie distracting me while the other crept around the back. I'd watched it 10 times. That second guy had a tool in his hand. Maybe a Slim Jim, maybe a pry bar. It was small, but he held it like he'd used it before. That's what stuck with me. These weren't just drifters looking for a place to crash. They had a routine, a plan. "Any chance they knew someone here?" I asked Morales. "Had a grudge? Maybe targeting the motel?" He shook his head, being pros. "Doesn't look personal, just opportunity. Could be pros or junkies playing it." I left with nothing but that phrase echoing in my head. Opportunity. It made me sick to think I could have been it. The next few shifts were uneventful. That was worse somehow. Every time the door creaked or the cameras flickered, my muscles tensed like I was preparing to duck or swing. I started bringing a crowbar with me, sliding it beneath the front desk just in case. I checked the locks twice, sometimes 3 times. I kept the back hallway light on even though it buzzed and gave off heat like a toaster. I stopped stepping out to take out the trash. Let it pile up. There was one moment, 3 nights later, when a woman and her kid came in during a rainstorm. Their car had broken down a few miles out. The kid was crying. She was soaked to the knees, and I almost didn't unlock the door. I stood there behind the glass, watching her bang on it with her palm, and it took me a second too long to convince myself this wasn't another trick. That hesitation hurt. She gave me this look when I finally let them in. Not angry, not scared, just disappointed, like she'd expected better. I gave her towels and tea from the supply cabinet. Let them stay in the breakfast room until a tow truck arrived. The kid fell asleep on the bench. She kept thanking me. I kept nodding like I deserved it. But I didn't, because I almost let fear leave them out there in the dark. That night, I stared at the lobby monitor and thought about how thin the line was between caution and cruelty. 1 week after the incident, a man checked in under the name Dennis R. Paid in cash. Normal enough, but something about his smile, too wide and too fast, scraped against something raw in me. I tried to shake it. He had a beat-up sedan, no license plates, said he was on his way to Utah. He asked for room 3. Room 3. the one the man in the hoodie had been standing near. That twisted a knot in my chest. I told him room 3 was out of order. Plumbing. Gave him room 8 instead. That night I didn't take my eyes off the monitor. Hours passed. He never left his room. No noise. No lights. Around 3 a.m. I saw movement. Not from him, but near the dumpster. Someone crouched low again. Just a shape this time. Gone before I could see clearly. I stepped back from the monitor and realized I'd started sweating. I didn't call the police. I didn't press the panic button. I just sat there, crowbar in hand, watching the screen like a soldier manning a lonely outpost. In the morning, room 8 was empty. Sheets untouched. Keycard on the dresser. He hadn't slept there. I quit the motel 2 weeks later. It wasn't dramatic. I handed my keys to Anita, the morning manager, told her I appreciated the opportunity, and walked out. She didn't ask why. I think she knew. She'd seen the way I jumped when the ice machine rattled, or how I flinched when guests leaned over the counter too fast. I packed that half-filled suitcase from under my bed and drove out of Crescent Pass with no destination, just a need to breathe in a place where danger didn't feel like a fog creeping around the edges of your night. I found a job later at a car rental desk outside Reno. Day shifts only. It took months before I stopped waking up from dreams of soft footsteps and broken locks. Even longer before I could stay in a motel without wedging a chair under the doorknob or sleeping with my keys in my hand. The worst part wasn't what happened. It was how close it came, how quiet it was, how danger didn't crash in with sirens or gunshots. It whispered, waited, tested the knob to see if you'd made a mistake. What I learned working those graveyard shifts is simple. Evil isn't loud. It's patient. It doesn't break down the door. Not at first. It knocks politely. Tells you it needs help. It leans on your good nature and waits for you to forget the lock. It's not always a monster. Sometimes it smiles. I used to think I had a pretty good sense of people, that I'd know when something felt wrong. Now I trust the lock, and I trust my gut, more than I trust a smile. Not every threat announces itself. Sometimes it waits quietly, watching. The smallest acts, locking a door, listening to instinct, can be the difference between safety and tragedy. Trust your gut. You don't owe politeness to strangers who make your skin crawl, because survival isn't always about strength. Sometimes it's about attention. Long weekends used to mean something different. They used to mean pancakes on Saturday mornings, beach towels that smelled like sunscreen, and my parents actually smiling at each other instead of arguing about things I wasn't supposed to hear. But this time felt off before it even began. It started with the drive. Ocean Pines was only 3 hours from our place in northern Maryland, but it took us 5 because Mom and Dad couldn't agree on the GPS. We didn't even have the music on most of the time, just the sound of tires and tension. Dad had found a great deal on a motel called Seabbrook Bay Inn. He said it looked old-fashioned but clean, and Mom just rolled her eyes when he said it. When we pulled up Friday evening, it looked exactly like the pictures. Pastel pink shutters, white lattice trim, and flower boxes with half-dead geraniums. It was tucked right between a small marina and a quiet stretch of sand dunes. The parking lot smelled like warm pavement and salt air. I actually liked it. It felt quieter than the city, calmer, even if my parents weren't. Our room was on the second floor, room 214, nothing special. 2 queen beds, loud air conditioning, seashell wallpaper, and the same beach painting I've seen in every rental place on the East Coast. My bed faced the window, which had a little view of the parking lot. That first night I stayed up later than I should have, watching cars pull in and out, trying to guess which families were happy and which ones were just pretending. Saturday morning I went down early for breakfast. Mom and Dad were still asleep, probably tired from all the fake smiling they did at dinner the night before. The breakfast room had those tiny cereal boxes and watery orange juice, and I sat alone near the window. That's when I saw him. He was sitting in the corner, wearing a blue windbreaker and holding a black travel mug like it was something precious. He looked normal enough, like someone's uncle or gym teacher. But the second I sat down, he looked right at me. Not the casual kind of look you give a stranger in public. He locked eyes, held them. I shifted in my seat, looked away, checked my phone, but every time I glanced back up, he was still staring, not blinking, not smiling, just watching. I started eating faster, not even tasting the cereal. I finished and left the room without looking back. When I told my mom, she didn't even put down her coffee. Some weird loner, just ignore it. I didn't push it, but something in me tightened. That afternoon, I met Haley. She was staying 2 rooms down with her stepmom and little brother. She was 16 too, and we clicked right away. Same music, same sarcasm, same tired of our parents' energy. We spent most of the afternoon at the pool and then hit the arcade down the street after dinner. It was perfect. Loud, neon, full of people. But when we got back, I saw him again. He was leaning against the vending machine near the stairwell. Same windbreaker, same black mug. His eyes found mine before I even finished climbing the steps. Just stared. No nod, no movement. Just that stare. Haley noticed too. "Is that the guy I saw near the pool yesterday?" she whispered. I nodded. Neither of us said anything else. That night, I triple-locked the door, shoved a chair under the knob, and kept my phone close. I wasn't scared exactly, but I wasn't not scared either. Around 11:50 p.m., I heard it. 3 soft knocks, not loud, not rushed, like someone who expected to be let in. I froze. I didn't move at first. I just sat in the darkness, listening to the slow tick of the room clock and the faint crash of waves somewhere beyond the dunes. Another knock didn't come right away, which somehow made it worse. I slid out of bed and crept toward the door, heart thumping like it was trying to warn me. I peeked through the peephole. It was him, same guy from breakfast, from the vending machine, from the shadows I was trying to forget. He was standing there in a motel robe. Not ours. It had the Seabbrook Bay Inn logo, but it looked older, worn down like something from a lost and found bin. He wasn't holding anything, just standing there looking straight at the door. His expression was neutral. No anger, no urgency, just that dead-eyed calm. I stepped back, covering my mouth so I wouldn't make a sound. I texted my mom, "Mom, wake up. Someone's at the door. It's that man." No response. I typed again, "He's standing there. Please wake up." Still nothing. I tiptoed into the bathroom and quietly closed the door. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone once before I finally called the front desk. A woman answered after 3 rings. Her voice was soft, tired. "Seabbrook Bay Inn. This is Donna." I whispered, "There's a man at our door. He's been following me since breakfast. He's knocking right now. I think he's trying to get in." Silence then. "Room number, please." 214, I whispered. There was a long pause on the other end. Too long. "Sweetheart," she finally said, her voice suddenly strange. "Occupied. I don't have anyone registered there. That room isn't supposed to be." I blinked. "What? My parents booked it 3 nights ago. We're in it right now. Room 214. "No one should have checked into 214, she repeated. "Even work. It's under renovation. That lock shouldn't." I hung up without saying goodbye and ran back into the bedroom. My legs were trembling, and my chest felt like it was caving in. I didn't care if I scared them. I shook both my parents awake, nearly screaming, "Man, he's at the door right now." My dad jumped out of bed. He opened the door without thinking, like he was daring this nightmare to come true. And there he was, still standing there, still calm, but now he was holding a key card. My dad lunged, tackling him into the hallway. The man didn't even fight. Just went down hard, flat on his back, staring up at the ceiling like it was no big deal. It felt like forever before the motel staff and police arrived, but according to the official report, It was under 15 minutes. A man in his late 40s, real name later confirmed as Daniel Elroy Harmon, was cuffed and seated on the curb by 12:20 a.m., his expression still as blank and calm as when he knocked on our door. The police questioned all of us separately. My mom clung to me while trying to explain things to the officers, but even she kept looking at me like she didn't believe what was happening. My dad paced nonstop, fists clenched, ready to explode if someone said the wrong thing. The front desk clerk, Donna, showed up a few minutes later, wrapped in a cardigan and visibly shaken. "I don't understand how he got into 214, she kept repeating. "It's not on the board. That lock was supposed to be disabled until the drywall work was finished." A couple officers went to check the room, then the closet down the hall. That's when things shifted from scary to stomach-churning. Inside the utility closet, just one door down from our room, they found what they later called a makeshift setup. An old blanket, empty energy drink cans, a burner phone, 2 different key cards, both coded for staff access, and a black duffel bag. In the bag were women's clothes, teenage girls' sizes. Not new, not clean. Haley's mom screamed when they showed it to her the next morning. Turns out, Harmon had checked in 2 days earlier using a stolen ID belonging to a contractor who'd done plumbing work at Seabbrook Bay Inn earlier that year. He'd wandered the property during the day wearing stolen housekeeping clothes, even swiping a few towels and a robe to make himself look like a guest. Nobody questioned him. He acted like he belonged. They said his phone had dozens of photos, some of Haley, some of me. One from the breakfast lounge, one from the pool, one of our room's window, zoomed in from the parking lot. That was the one that made me sick. He had been watching us for 2 days, waiting. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. None of us did. The police left just before dawn, but my mom didn't want to stay another second. We packed in 30 minutes and left with the sky still pink over the dunes. Haley's family left too. We didn't say much to each other, but she gave me a look that said everything. "You're not crazy." I saw him too, and I think that saved me more than anything else that weekend. The drive home was silent, except for when Mom softly said, "Didn't say anything back. You were right to lock the door." And that first week back, I couldn't sleep unless all the lights were on. I kept checking the closet, then the hallway, then the locks. I'd stare at my window waiting for a shadow that never came but still felt like it could. I had nightmares where the knock came again, always soft, always at 11:50. Sometimes I saw his face, sometimes I didn't. The worst ones were when I looked through the peephole and saw myself. Staring back in that robe, calm and patient, just waiting to be let in. Therapy helped, kind of. I mean, it gave me a place to talk about it, to make the story real in a way that made me feel like I had control over it. I learned to say things like trauma response and hypervigilance and closure. I still don't sleep easily, but at least now I understand why. And I know it wasn't my fault. That's something I had to learn over and over. It wasn't my fault. Not for smiling politely at a stranger. Not for ignoring my gut that first morning. Not for unlocking the door to my parents' idea of a vacation. Not for being a girl in a place where no one expected danger. We didn't go on another trip that summer, and I'm okay with that. Now, when someone says they feel uncomfortable, I believe them. Doesn't matter if it seems dramatic. Doesn't matter if there's no proof. Your gut knows. And I trust mine now. Every time. I still think about him, sometimes. Not every day, but enough. When I hear someone knock at night, even just the neighbor across the hall delivering a package, I freeze, just for a second. It passes. But I still check the peephole. I always will. Trust your instincts. Speak up, even when others dismiss your fears. In a world where people are taught to be polite, it's okay to be loud about your discomfort. It could save your life. It wasn't the kind of breakup that ends with screaming. It was the quiet kind. The kind where the silences between you become longer than the conversations. 5 years gone in 5 sentences over lukewarm coffee. He said we'd outgrown each other. I said maybe he was right. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I'd been surviving mostly on boxed wine and writing deadlines I couldn't bring myself to meet. So when I booked the solo road trip, it wasn't about running away. It was about trying to remember who I was before him. I needed time, space, a couple of old novels, a notebook, a playlist full of sad songs, and Oregon's empty back roads. I picked the Riverbend View Motel because it looked charming in a lonely way. Just 6 rooms wedged between forested hills outside Milton. It had no front desk, no concierge, just a website, a credit card field, and an automated message that said, "Your key will be taped to the front door." It sounded peaceful. I arrived just after 6 in the evening, the trees dripping from an afternoon drizzle. The place was even smaller than I expected. 1 gravel lot, 1 office cabin, 6 doors, all painted pale green and chipped at the bottom. Room 4 had a taped envelope with my name in pencil. Inside was clean enough. Simple bed, nightstand, tiny desk. No TV, which I liked. I unpacked my books, lit a candle I brought from home, and made a cup of tea from a weird complimentary stash of chamomile and oolong. Then I texted Tom. We'd met online 3 weeks ago on a dating site that promised no pressure, no swiping. Just long-form profiles and a lot of book recommendations. His bio said he liked Wendell Berry and grilled cheese. His photos were grainy, taken in soft light, usually outdoors, always alone. That's what drew me in. He looked still. His profile said he was 31 and lived near Milton. He messaged me first. "You seem like someone who enjoys silence." I do too. We talked about writing, about how hard it is to feel understood when you're naturally quiet, about why being alone doesn't always mean being lonely. He never pushed, just showed up in my inbox with short, thoughtful questions. We had exchanged maybe a dozen messages when I told him, casually, that I was taking a solo trip. "Riverbend View," I said, "some tiny motel in the middle of nowhere." He replied, "That sounds perfect. Want to meet? Somewhere public, no pressure." I agreed to meet for coffee the next day. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I liked the way he phrased things, gentle, like he knew I was fragile but didn't want to break me. That night I didn't plan to do much. Just rest. Maybe write a little. Maybe finally finish that Joan Didion collection I kept carrying around but never cracked open. But that's not how the night went. Because around 9:30, I started hearing footsteps outside my window. At first, I told myself it was just the wind moving pine cones. Then I heard it again. Slow, measured, like someone walking, stopping, then walking again. When I looked through the blinds, I saw only 2 cars, mine, and a white SUV that hadn't been there when I checked in. I hadn't seen anyone else arrive. I was used to being alone. That wasn't the issue. I've spent birthdays by myself, worked from coffee shops with headphones in, even gone entire weekends without speaking a full sentence aloud. But that night at Riverbend View, something felt different. It wasn't the kind of alone I'd chosen. It was the kind that settled into your bones like cold air. The footsteps returned at 10:08, then 10:27. Each time I'd look, and each time there was no one in view. The SUV's dome light flicked on briefly, just a flash, and then off again. At 11:12 I got a text. "Tom. Room 4. Looks cozy." I stared at the message so long the screen dimmed. I hadn't told him my room number. Not in a message, not on a post, not in passing. I replied immediately, "Excuse me?" No response. Just the ... of a typing bubble. Then, nothing. That was the first time I felt real fear. Not nervousness, not first date jitters. The kind of fear that makes your body feel too small for your skin. I turned off the lights and sat near the window, peering out through the curtains. The SUV's driver door was open. No one inside. No movement anywhere. Just trees and fog and that buzzing porch light. I decided I wasn't sleeping there. I grabbed my bag, my car keys, and stuffed everything important into the front seat. I planned to drive into Milton, sleep in a diner lot if I had to. Maybe even get a room at some 24-hour chain where I could see a human face behind bulletproof glass. When I opened the door, I nearly stepped on it. A note, folded in half, placed perfectly on the doormat. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. Written on the outside in pen, "I think we're past coffee now." I didn't scream. I didn't even swear. I just moved. I slid into my car, locked the doors before I even turned the key, and reversed so fast my tires crunched gravel up onto the sidewalk. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep them on the wheel. I didn't check the mirrors. I didn't look back. But I did see the light. The office, which had been dark when I checked in, was now glowing faint yellow from the inside. And someone was there. A man, standing behind the front desk, staring through the office window, watching me. He looked exactly like Tom's photos, except off. Older, fuller face, maybe 10 or 15 pounds heavier. Hair more gray than the soft brown I remembered. Same plaid shirt, same narrow nose. But it wasn't right, like someone playing a version of himself that no longer existed. He didn't move, just watched as I backed out and sped down Hollow Point Road toward the nearest patch of lights I could find. I drove straight to Milton, parked outside a 24-hour diner and sat there until the sun rose. Didn't eat, didn't get out, just watched the dark, thinking how close I'd been. I returned around 7 a.m. with 2 officers from the Milton Sheriff's Department. They weren't dismissive, thankfully, but they weren't exactly hopeful either. The SUV, gone. The note, gone. The office light, off. Locked. Empty. There was no sign anyone had entered room 4 except me. They searched the area, took my statement, and promised to follow up. They asked me to send screenshots of our messages, which I did. But here's the thing. When I opened the app again, Tom's profile was gone. Just vanished. No username. No thread. Nothing in my inbox except a blank conversation that now read, "User has deactivated or been removed." When I called the motel's listed number, it rang 5 times and went to a full voicemail. The website still worked, still had the same smiling photo of pine trees, still promised peace and privacy. The only new thing? My reservation had disappeared too. A few weeks later, I learned that the Riverbend View Motel had changed ownership 6 months ago. The new owner ran everything online. No on-site staff, no cameras, just an old lockbox system and recycled key codes. No one had changed the access for room 4 in over a year, meaning anyone who had ever stayed there could still get in. I don't know who Tom really was. I don't know if he'd stayed there before or if he found a way to fake his way in. But I know this. He knew where I was. He knew what room I was in. And he didn't just want coffee. Now every motel I book, I ask a question no one expects. When were the locks last changed? The quietest places aren't always the safest. In a world where digital connections can lead to real danger, always protect your location, trust your instincts, and never ignore the voice inside that says something isn't right. I never meant to end up in Missoula. I'd planned a straight shot from Wyoming to the Pacific, scattering Daniel's ashes at the coast. But grief is a trembling passenger. You don't always get it where you want it. I started shaking behind the wheel, the steering wheel dancing between my clammy fingers. I took the first exit, Fox Hollow Road, cedar trees, quiet. Juniper Knoll Lodge's neon sign buzzed low, Vacancy. Inside, a man in a weathered plaid shirt with silver in his hair introduced himself as Don. He gave me a real key, metal, heavy, real, just scratched 7 in faded ink. He said the heater worked. That's all I needed. I paid with a credit card I've kept mostly hidden these days. No questions asked. Perfect. The room smelled like cedar and dust and something ancient like memory. The bedspread crackled when I sat. I sank into it, pulling my knees close. Cold, cozy quiet. I set my phone by the nightstand and stepped outside for a smoke. Even the forest was subdued. No cicadas, not even a breeze. That's when I noticed room 4's curtains moving. Fast, like someone ducked behind the window. I stared. No one there. I shrugged it off and went back in. Packed grief and packing grief tipped with fear. Back in bed, I thought about Daniel. His laugh, the freckles on his shoulders, the way he held my hand in the dark. This trip was supposed to help me remember him without pain. Instead, something new scratched at me. At 9:40 p.m., there was a soft knock, gentle, polite, persistent. I assumed it was Dawn checking the smell of the heater or someone mixing up rooms. I cracked the door. A woman in a lodge sweatshirt stood there, older, anxious. She said, "Sorry, I thought you needed extra towels." Her voice trembled. I tilted my head. "I didn't," I asked. "Are you housekeeping?" She said no, just checking. She looked past me for a second too long, then forced a smile and walked away. The door clicked shut. I locked it twice. I lay awake, mind spinning. Footsteps outside, the hum of an empty room, the faded wood smell. I told myself it wasn't real. Maybe she meant well. But something had shifted. The lodge felt smaller, the walls closer. I turned off the light, wishing the night would swallow me whole. I woke at dawn, disoriented. Last night already felt unreal, like a half-forgotten dream. I showered, scrubbing pores frantic, trying to reset. I chatted with Don in the lobby. His shoulders sagged. He'd worked there years, said business was slow. "Ghost trees," he whispered with a tired smile. I wanted to ask about room 4, but he seemed friendly enough, precise, quiet, respectful. I stayed on my sleeve, opened enough but not too much. He said something odd. No one had been in room 4 for years. Floor collapsed, closed off, boarded inside, and housekeeping didn't go in. So why was someone at my door? I didn't mention her, didn't want to seem paranoid. His eyes flicked, distant. I walked the surrounding pine lot, gray sky low over the trees. Moss softened the ground. I remembered how everything in our home had seemed stiff after Daniel died, until moss and rain softened it again. It came back to me now, walking alone, not anchored to any plan. The forest offered no answers. That night I returned from a walk with the sunset slanted over pines. The lodge seemed unchanged, quiet. But when I inserted the key in room 7, it didn't turn. A jerk, a click, nothing. I jiggled it, slid the door. Still dark inside. The heater was off. I thought, no matter. Maybe he gave it to someone else. I went to the lobby. No dawn, no lights, no cars other than mine. The office lamp flicked off as I stepped inside. There was a note taped to the counter. "You've been moved to room 5. Heaters out in 7, doors open." No signature, no lodge letterhead, just cheap ink. My chest squeezed. Who wrote that? Room 5? I've never been in room 5. I asked the motel sign near the parking lot. It read, "Thank you for staying in room 5. But I hadn't. I didn't trust myself. I returned to 7 and found the door open. My suitcase was unzipped. My phone gone. I left my flight socks, my daily journal. Gone. Not stolen. Just taken. I didn't dare stay. I bolted, packed nothing and ran. My heels whispered across pavement. I jumped in my car and drove until the gas light glowed. I parked near a highway rest area and slept on the seat. My tears soaked the jacket I grabbed. I spent 2 uneasy days in motels I trusted less than my heartbreak. At a cafe in Missoula, I ordered coffee thick with cream, hands steady over a burner phone. I called Juniper Null. Don answered. That voice, calm, flat, empty. He said he never left a note, never moved me, never saw me leave. I'd never lied. I asked about room 4. He paused. Something like relief flickered. We closed room 4 10 years ago after the floor failed. It's boarded up inside. So, who ducked behind the curtains? The woman at my door? I stilled. His voice held just enough understanding to cut me open. One's supposed to be in there. No, there were no records. No housekeeping logs, no cameras. Everything analog, key rings, carbon receipt ledger. Whoever wrote the note broke in. Whoever opened my door didn't rely on the system. They slipped behind old walls, mistook silence. I thought about grief, how death passes through walls, rooms, floors that have fallen years ago. We think they're closed, safe, empty, but life leaves cracks, and things seep. I didn't report it to the police. Missing phone, no prints, no forced entry. A renderer's note is hard to pin to any soul. But I swore to myself, never alone again in places that whisper secrets. Weeks after leaving Missoula, I touch keys the wrong way. I ask about locks. I walk with a new alertness. I learned what grief teaches. You're fragile, yes, but you're also capable. You survive cracks. You notice floors can fall, but you step around them. You patch your own floors when you have to. I visited the coast later. I scattered ashes into wind and tide where Daniel loved to stand with me. I felt him there, not lost, free, and maybe I am too. Juniper Null Lodge. Their website still promises privacy, silence, quiet rooms. I wonder if they changed the key code, updated signage. I don't want to go back. But every once in a while, I picture the wood board, cracked floorboards in room 4, and imagine someone buried in dust behind the curtains. I've changed the way I travel. My next motel, I'll ask, when did you change the locks? Are all rooms boarded? No more assumptions. I snap more photos of halls, doors, even travel light, keep fresh batteries. Because motel silence can be borrowed. You can empty rooms and call them vacant, but someone might still be living in the dark. I don't want to scare others, but in the digital age we give away a lot. Room numbers, vague GPS, early morning check-ins. We share stories with strangers. That's fine. But we must remember, silence shouldn't cost us safety. Be kind. Be curious. Be alert. Grief may make you seek silence, but silence can be deceptive. Empty rooms can still hide threats. Protect your space. Question the quiet. And when you listen to your instincts, it can be the sound that saves you. I ended up at Blue Creek Lodge not by choice, but by exhaustion. I still remember that moment I realized I'd lost everything. Eviction notice in one hand, my dog's leash dangling in the other, the rideshare app flashing deactivated. I felt hollow. I drove out of town aimlessly until my gas light blinked. That's when I took the exit into Alpine, Arizona, where pine trees crowded a lonely road and a neon sign buzzed, Blue Creek Lodge. Vacancies. Inside, a blue-haired desk clerk, maybe 20-something, looked at me through tired eyes. The lobby smelled of pine cleaner and stale coffee. The cheapest room was still more than I'd hoped, but it had 4 walls, a roof, and a lock. I slid the card to her, trying to pretend I wasn't desperate. My palms shook enough she must have noticed, but she didn't ask questions, just handed me the key to room 12. My dog would have liked the linoleum floor and the super bright overhead light, enough space to lie down. I unpacked a few essentials, phone charger, toothbrush, some clothes, and felt lighter than I had in weeks. Some place to land, even if just for a night. But with money running out, I spent the afternoon calculating possibilities. Drive further north, hitchhike, try to find my old roommate's couch. It didn't matter. I was stuck. That night, the clerk poked her head into my room before she left. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I lied, leaning back on the bed. But when she left, I closed my eyes and the ceiling swam. A month of screaming landlords, vanishing clients, lost custody. But the bottom line was this: I'm still alive. That's something. Day 2 started with me scrounging quarters for the laundromat. I walked past a beige truck with a wooden trailer parked by the pine lot, thought someone was unloading, but didn't offer help. My phone dinged with the same paper ride waiting. Nothing. That afternoon, the desk clerk, I learned her name was Sarah, approached again. "I can have my uncle help out," she said. "Times. He's old school. He likes helping guys doing hard." I scoffed, but I nodded. I was hungry and tired, and even a free night sounded good. At 6:30 p.m., a tall man in his 60s appeared at my door. His boots tapped the tile outside before he knocked. I opened it, expecting Sarah. He introduced himself quietly. "Miles Carter?" That was me. He shuffled inside and sat on the edge of the bed. Cowboy boots left traces on the sheets. He smelled of leather and Old Spice. "Your room's paid for. 3 nights," he said, pulling a wad of bills from inside his coat. "Some cash too, no strings unless you want them." His tone was smooth, generous. But my spine stiffened. This was more than charity. Something in his eyes flickered, calculation or regret or hunger. I declined gently. "Thank you, but I'll manage." His smile faded. He stood and nodded. "Just know," he said, "not everyone turns down comfort when it's offered." He left, goodbyed, and vanished off screen, leaving crumpled bills that felt heavy in my hand and a warning in my gut. Later that night, 2:14 a.m., I bolted upright as my room phone rang. Slow, drawn-out rings. When I answered, all I heard was breathing. I let it go, but moments later there was a knock. Soft, then heavier, then silence. The phone rang again. Then at 2:18 someone tried the handle. Sleep and fear collided. My heart hammered louder than the knocks. I unplugged the phone. I triple-locked the deadbolt, used the chair under the knob, and sat awake, eyes glued to the door. I thought, "Don't go out there." At dawn, I told Sarah. "Oh," she said, shrugging. "Probably another guest who mixed up doors." But there were just 3 rooms occupied, mine and 2 others on the opposite side. I looked out through the curtains and saw no cars, no help, no explanation. Packing was surreal. I tucked the extra cash into my pocket, stuffed toiletries in a bag. As I zipped up the duffel, I noticed the back window screen was gone, stolen or removed. The bed had been shifted just a few inches out of place. My bag, which I'd double-locked, was unzipped, clues of someone rifling through it. Inside my shoe, resting perfectly folded, a note. Most men say no first. They don't always stick to it. I didn't hesitate. I left the cash on the dresser and bolted. I tore onto the highway and drove without stopping, eyes red, hands tight. 6 hours later, I pulled into a truck stop just as the fuel light blinked. I slept in the pit stop bathroom stall, the fluorescent lights glowing above me, closer to security than I'd felt in days. Weeks later, I finally climbed into a reliable motel with an online booking and digital key code. I looked up Blue Creek Lodge. At first, it had a clean rating, but a deeper look revealed 2 vanished Google reviews from men saying almost the same thing. A friendly staff, an old-school uncle offering nights paid, then weird stuff happening. The reviews had disappeared. What remained was one from Clay. Room was paid for. Got what I needed. Nothing more. I don't know Clay. I don't want to know him. I still sleep with one eye open. When I check in anywhere, I ask, "When did you last change key codes? Any free stays offered?" They think I'm paranoid. Maybe I am now, but the moral is simple. Comfort offered unexpectedly can come with hidden costs. Stay alert, and hard-earned kindness is valuable. But no amount of money should cost your peace or privacy. Trust your instincts. Not every stranger has pure motives, and every act of generosity may hide something darker.